High Point University presents Seth Godin is a production of UNC-TV in association with High Point University.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to High Point University. We're delighted to have you on this campus. As you know, this institution of higher learning has some 4,000 students who hail from 37 countries and about 47 states, and every one of them is unique, and we're delighted to have them in our family. High Point University is based on really three premises, on three tenets. The first one is holistic education. We believe that our students ought to study inside the classroom, but as equally important, they must study outside the classroom. That learning inside the classroom is the fundamental of what happens inside your brain, but that to prepare yourself for life, you must also be engaged, involved, invested in elements besides the classroom. And we do that in ample supply here. Secondly, it's about experiential learning. The old Chinese proverb says, I hear and I forget, I see and I may remember, I do and I understand. And so we want our students to fully understand that which they learn, and more importantly, acknowledge the understanding in the way that they actualize it in life. They're living in a very complex world, very competitive world that goes beyond the boundaries of America, and they have to prepare themselves if they're going to get a job, start a business, partner with somebody to be exceptionally prepared, extraordinary in what they do if they are to experience both success and significance. And thirdly, it's about values-based living. That this institution is a God, family, and country school. We shout it from the mountaintop, American flag on every stage. I'm an immigrant to this country, fill out 38 forms, side A and side B, to become one of you. And I want to remind our students every day they live in the greatest country on the face of this earth, bar none, and there is no exception to that rule. And so here we believe in God, family, and country, and we believe in other values like generosity, and like fellowship, and like learning, and like service. And to that end, we frequently bring to this stage and other stages on this campus thought leaders, men and women who have written about significant subjects, men and women who have affected the very fiber of our thought processes, men and women who influence our set of beliefs and therefore engage our mindset in elements that are of value. We've had at High Point University recently Malcolm Gladwell, the author of The Tipping Point, Tom Friedman, the author of The World is Flat, the chairman CEO of Coca-Cola Worldwide. You're getting the idea. Some very celebrated people, dozens of them, who come here to model for our students the very principles that can make for a successful career and a successful life in this world of free enterprise and in the world in which we all live. This afternoon, I'm delighted to introduce to you a person who has written extensively. If you have read his writings, you have been influenced significantly by the way he thinks. He's different, he's innovative, he's got ideas of his own, and so ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Seth Godin. Welcome, Seth. Good to have you here. Nice to have you. Thank you. Let me tell you a couple of things about Seth Godin. Seth Godin was born in Mount Vernon, New York. He received an undergraduate degree in computer science and philosophy in Tufts University. He got his MBA at Stanford. He started several companies, including Yoyodyne, which he sold to Yahoo. He was a columnist for Fast Company magazine, as well as Harvard Business Review. He's written 14 books or more.
17.
17 books. 17 books. He's good in math, too. And he's founder of Squidoo.com, and he's the most popular business blogger in the world. He speaks everywhere, here and there. He's much in demand. He has two sons, 17 and 19, and lives with his wife, Helene, in New York. Seth, your books have the most interesting titles. I have a few here. But your books have titles like Meatball Sunday, Purple Cow, The Big Moo, Poke the Box, We Are All Weird. The title of one of his books, We Are All Weird. I want to know what makes you think of these titles, and what goes in your brain when you come up with stuff like that.
Well, you should see the ones that didn't get published. What's the purpose of a book cover? Purpose of the book cover is to start a story in your head. What's the purpose of the book title? Purpose of the book title is to open the door for what the book is going to tell you, number one. And number two, to make it so that if you're going to have a conversation about the book, the person who you have the conversation with will not be bored to tears. Now, I learned that I was on the right track when I got an email from a guy. And he said, look, I worked in a matrix organization. I have two bosses. And one of my bosses said to me one day, we got to get that purple cow thing going on here. And I didn't know what that meant, but I bluffed. He said, then my other boss, 2 days later, mentioned that we didn't have enough purple cow. And I'm not stupid, the guy wrote in his notes, so I went, Googled it, figured out what it was, read the book. Went back to my first boss, and I said, I read that book, it was great. He said, there's a book? And that's the point, is that if you brought up purple cow in a meeting, you had to explain what you were talking about. Whereas if I had called it the new P of marketing, right, or the new R of marketing, remarkable, whatever it was, so, right, it doesn't lead to a conversation. The only reason to write a book is to start people thinking, and the best way to get people to think is have them talk about it. So some of the magic that you're making here on campus, that some of the students in this room know, is you're causing conversations to happen. Because if we don't have conversations, you should just stay home and we'll send you a video. This is about getting conversations to occur.
So the book, We Are All Weird, says?
I love this book. This book has not been read by enough people. Every author feels...
There are not enough weird people in the world.
Every author feels like there are not enough people reading this book, but the idea of that book is very straightforward, which is that if any of you have taken statistics, you know about the normal distribution, the bell curve. The normal distribution says that section in the center is normal. We've made it pejorative now to not be in the center. Those are the weird people on the edges. And what every marketer, every politician, every organization is told to do is put stuff in the middle for the masses. That we need a college for the masses, and a book for the masses, and a religion for the masses, and a politician for the masses, because that's how you win. But what's happened in the last 15 years is that the outliers are finding each other. So for example, some guy runs 20 miles and he thinks he's an all-star, and then he goes to a meetup with other ultra-marathoners and hears that they're doing 100. So suddenly he has to do more. And this person buys a fly fishing rod, and they think, wow, I'm really cool. I went to Dick's, I bought the expensive fly fishing rod. But they go online to flyfishing.com, and there's 200 fly fishing rods. So they buy the left-handed, lightweight, made by monks bamboo fishing rod. And then people keep... So what's happened is now there are more people on the edges than there are in the middle. And the people who are left in the middle are boring on purpose. They don't want to hear about your new idea. They don't want to hear what you have to offer. They're just going to watch American Idol. But the people on the edges... The people on the edges are going to seek you out. The weird people are the only people we have a chance to reach going forward. And so, if you want to open a restaurant, don't open a restaurant that's just like, Applebee's, because there already is a restaurant called Applebee's. You open, a Cambodian barbecue place, because the people who care about Cambodian food are going to find you. They couldn't find you before because we didn't have a way to find everything. But now everything is miscellaneous, as David Weinberger said. So by pushing out to the edges, we've changed our culture forever. And the weird people, that's all of us, are finding each other and amplifying our weirdness. Right? Every person who's a student at High Point is weird because they came here. The normal thing to do would be to go to a school your parents had heard of, to go to a school that your peers are going to. Coming here isn't that. People came here because they wanted to, because they cared. And those are the only people that are worth reaching out to.
I never thought of our students as weird. I'm going to look at them differently now. Are you weird?
Every day, as much as I can be. Because it means, that's another way of saying, are you passionate? Right? The alternative is, are you beaten by the masses in doing what they told you to do? I'd rather the answer for that to be no.
So Seth, where do your ideas come from? How do you find your ideas? How do you catalog your ideas? What is it that your brain, take us inside your brain. When you get up in the morning, what is it that happens to you? What is it that captures your imagination? Where do the ahas come from? What do you do with them? How do you assimilate them?
Let me answer a different question first, because a lot of people are uptight about writer's block. That Stephen King, the question he gets asked the most is, where do you get your ideas? And people like Stephen and I, if I can put myself in this category briefly, are frustrated by that question. And the reason is that we don't think writer's block exists. And our proof is that no one ever gets talker's block. No one wakes up in the morning going, right? Everyone manages to say something. Yeah. So how come when it's time to write it down, we freeze up? And Steve Pressfield calls this the resistance. If you're going to read one book after today, please go read The War of Art, or the shorter version, which I was lucky to publish, Do the Work. And Pressfield talks about the amygdala, which is right back here. If you go to a bio class here, you'll learn about it. It's the prehistoric brain. It's the brain dinosaurs had, lizards have, foxes have. It's the brain of a wild animal. We still have it. It's left over. It's the brain that kept us from getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger back in the day. Well, that brain doesn't want to be held responsible. That brain doesn't want to be eaten. That brain doesn't want to be blamed. So when you take out a pen and have to say, I believe this, it gives you a reason not to. It comes up with an excuse. I don't have anything to say. I don't have any good ideas. Well, a minute ago, you were gabbing like crazy. Why were you, you know? So all I do is write down stuff that other people would have just said and that would have disappeared. And the way I do my work is by noticing things. I look at something in the world and say, why is it that that video is spreading? Why is it that we don't have chandeliers in houses anymore? We used to have them when I was growing up, but they're gone. Where'd they go? Why is it that airline travel is both a pain in the neck and losing money? And I ask myself questions. And I try to notice why things are happening. And if I have a theory, I write it down. That's all I do.
One of the things I do regularly is read your daily blog. And on October the 29th of last year, here's what you wrote. You said who you hang out with determines what you dream about and what you collide with. And the collisions and the dreams lead to your changes. And the changes are what you become. Change the outcome by changing your circle. This is exactly what I say to freshmen and seniors. I teach a freshman class here to all the freshmen at High Point. And we tell them who you spend time with is who you become. And we tell the seniors, when you graduate, if you want to be great, you must hang around great people. If you want to be an innovative person, you must hang around innovative people. What a simple concept. Yeah. What a powerful concept. I never thought of it, though, as colliding with.
Right. So how many of you are entrepreneurs? Great. So how many of you have envy of Silicon Valley, that you're always reading about these guys going to the fancy lunches, raising $25 million? I don't think you should, because they're busy colliding with people who have one set of standards. Not, are you doing something that's worthy? Not, are you doing something that is a real business? But can you raise $25 million tomorrow? That's the collisions that they have. That's what comes up when you're waiting in line at the supermarket. I know, because I used to live there. And if that's what you aspire to do, you better move there right away, because you need those conversations if that's what you aspire to do. If, on the other hand, you hang out with people who are running soup kitchens, or you hang out with people who are counseling, or you hang out with people who are getting deep into what it means to be human, the odds are the business you build is going to be more human. If you hang out with people who are going really slow because they don't want to make a mistake, you're not going to make mistakes, but you're going to go really slow. I prefer to hang out with people who are going really fast and who have figured out that mistakes aren't going to kill them. And so that means if I'm going to see someone who I haven't seen in a few weeks and I haven't made any mistakes lately, I'm going to be embarrassed. So I got to go make some new mistakes so I can have something to talk about when I get there. And this is a very profound cultural insight. And I wrote a book called Tribes about this idea. It used to be that the only tribe you had was, your work tribe, your social tribe, your religious tribe. That was it. Now you can join almost any tribe you want, because online will connect you to the people down the street. Someone sent me an email pointing out that it wasn't like that in her neighborhood. And I said, your neighborhood doesn't matter as much as it used to. Local used to be the only way we had to organize people. What's your zip code? I can tell a lot about you from your zip code. Now, I want to know your browser history, not your zip code. because it's where you're hanging out virtually, where you're having real collisions, matter more than who you're swearing at who cut you off in traffic, right? Because those sorts of collisions aren't the kind of collisions I'm talking about.
So you talk about fruitful failure, some of your books. It's an extension of that.
Yeah. Now, failure doesn't have to be expensive. It merely has to be embarrassing. That I am not talking about the Edsel, $1 billion, 5 years, gone down the drain. I'm talking about, did you have a face-to-face interaction with somebody where you got it wrong? Did you put an idea on the table around a meeting with 5 other people and start by saying, this might not work, but I think I'm going to do it anyway? Most of us work in organizations where you're not allowed to say that, where you have to say, I am sure this will work and I will prove it. Well, if all your organization is doing are things that you are sure are going to work, it means you're doing nothing but boring. So please don't then start parading around that you're doing stuff that's remarkable, because remarkable stuff is always stuff that might not work.
And you call the voice in our brain that keeps us from doing that lizard brain?
Right. So the amygdala, the Steve Pressfield's resistance, the voice of the lizard. And there's all sorts of ways I can show you this anecdotally, but I can also show it to you in the lab. So imagine caller ID, and you see from the caller, it's 10 o'clock Saturday night, that it's the chairman of the board of your company or your boss's boss. What happens? How long does it take for your heartbeat to start racing? Right? Did you have a whole calculation going through all the math, or did it happen instantly? It happens instantly. And we go from this person is calling to I'm in trouble to they figured out I'm truly a fraud to I'm going to be fired. I am never going to get another job because I'm going to be blackballed. I am not going to have enough to eat. I'm going to die. And so caller ID to dead in less than a second. And we can prove this, right? That's not your conscious brain up here. That's the amygdala, the lizard brain.
Lizard brain. All right, I'll remember that. Lizard brain. Do people who have lizard brain, they're weird too?
Okay, so...
Which is more likely, lizard brain people to be weird or weird people to have lizard brain?
The lizard hates being weird, okay? I want you to think about, I hate to do this, but think about high school. In high school, when the lizard brain is at the peak of its powers, because you've got all these hormones going around, right? Think about it. That's when evolutionarily the lizard brain has its most important job to do. And back in the old days, you know, you're in high school. What's more important? Fitting in, being invisible, wearing the right clothes, not embarrassing yourself, or being weird and being noticed. No, the lizard brain does not want you to be weird and noticed when you're in high school. That what you dream of, the best thing that could happen is to be the homecoming king and queen, which is both fitting in and being honored at the same time. The opposite of weird, right? So what I do with the lizard brain, what all the successful, creative people I know, all of them, and I'm going to put you in that even though we haven't talked about this, Amanda Palmer, Sir Ken, all the people you see on TED, people who make an actual difference in politics, all of them do not fight the lizard brain. They do not say, I am in a life or death battle with the resistance. What they say is, it's my compass. When it freaks out, I'm doing the right thing. When it is telling me to stop, I know I am going in the right direction. But if you've trained yourself from high school on to have that voice be quiet, that's how you become an alcoholic. That's how you get writer's block. That's how you avoid going on a blind date, because it doesn't like any of those things. So it says, soothe me, keep me safe, let's watch more TV. You know, after Seinfeld went off the air, we got rid of the television in my house, and I haven't had it back. And I don't miss it, because that soothes you into being unweird. And instead, if you're colliding enough and listening to that voice and doing the opposite of what it says, you're more likely to do this creative work of weird, which is all that we have room for now.
You don't watch Snooki on Jersey Shore? She's weird.
Snooki is not weird. She's not. She's a train wreck, right? that if you think about the Jersey Shore, and I can be literate about pop culture because I can watch it in airports and wherever, but the people on the Jersey Shore are self-medicating to soothe the lizard brain. They are coming up with tribal behaviors to soothe the lizard brain. They invent tanning, gym, and whatever it is because it's better than trying to think of what to do next. But the people who are doing the work that we care about are figuring out what to do next, not following the person who told them what to do next. And the problem with most colleges is they are high school, but with more binge drinking. And high school is a series of tests that prove that you fit in more than everyone else, that you have done what you are told. So anyone who goes to college trying to do more of that, because it's what that got them into college, has failed. That the entire purpose of a good university is to give you a foundation to fail, not a foundation to get an A. And if you graduate from college with straight A's, you have to do some serious soul searching as to why you chose to spend your time doing that.
That's weird. All right. I get your point.
When I was a junior at Tufts,
yes,
I took 40%, 50% more courses than anybody else because it was all you could eat. Why not? I took as many courses pass-fail as I could. I so abused my major, they took it out of the catalog after I graduated because I took philosophy classes and counted them as computer graphics. I don't know how I got away with that. I ran a business with 400 employees. I carried one notebook for all 4 years, and I got the lowest grade I could get away with in every class, because the goal was not to master biomechanical engineering, it was to get the joke and then move on to the next thing. Because it was college, right? No one was putting me to college to master biomechanical engineering. God forbid you wanted me to make an artificial elbow for you. You would never hire me to do that. But what you would hire me to do is discover the boundaries and the edges and what's interesting and what works and what doesn't. 4 years I got to do that without anyone saying I wasn't doing it right. What a gift, right? And yet I roomed with a guy who had a 4.0. And he was perfect at figuring out the stress that a bridge can take under certain loads. And now a computer program can do that in 6 seconds, right? So Lenny worked way harder than I did on one thing. But that one thing isn't the ticket. What's the ticket is, can you balance, can you dance? And are you okay if you're dancing to the wrong tune and have to switch?
And maybe that's part of what makes some people indispensable, is that they go beyond the norm, they look for the edges, they look for things to make things happen. In your book, Linchpin, let me quote, you say the linchpin is an individual who can walk into chaos and create order. Someone who can invent, connect, create, and make things happen. Every worthwhile institution has indispensable people who make differences like these. What advice do you have for any students or young entrepreneurs who may be here today about how does one become indispensable, if not literally, practically?
Right, no one is literally indispensable. Right. So, if you're an entrepreneur waiting for funding, what you're almost certainly doing is hiding from the resistance. And if you're a student waiting for the semester to end before you start that new project because you're too busy, you are certainly hiding from the resistance. That it doesn't cost any money to have a blog. When you have one, you have to tell the truth, even if no one reads it, because every day you write something down, and you're held to it. It's down. If you are on campus and you are not organizing a club, running a t-shirt sale, figuring out a way to do some spring fundraiser that you are in charge of, not joining, then you are hiding. That as an entrepreneur, when you learn to make a sales call and take a no as no for now and get ready for the next one, or take a yes and then have to go build what you promised, now you are confronting that thing that scares you. But if you are just planning, you're hiding. So the steps to being a linchpin are being able to become the person, because I don't think anyone is born this person, to become the person who raises their hand first and volunteers to help first and says, I will start this thing. And the magic of our culture and our country and this moment in time, it was really hard when I was doing this 30 years ago because there was no way to connect online. Now, if you want to sing, sing, right? If you want to write, write. If you want to make a video, make a video. I have a dear friend who's an actress who goes on auditions all the time. And I'm like, make your own damn movie. No one's stopping you. You can do it with an SLR now. Put it online. If 100 people watch it, it was good. If 1,000 people watch it, it was great. And if 1,000 people watch it, someone's going to hire you to make the next one. And there's nobody stopping us for now. People keep trying to, but they're not. And the college campus is the best version of being able to do this broken field running. When I was in high school, the cafeteria went on strike. And so we were all just milling about. And I looked in the yellow pages and found a guy who wholesaled ice cream sandwiches. So I bought $200 worth of ice cream sandwiches and sold them for $400. And if it hadn't worked, I would have been out $200, right? But instead I raised $400 for the school band, and then I took the $400 and I bought $400 worth of ice cream sandwiches and bought $800 worth of ice cream sandwiches until the strike was over and we had made $3,000 in 5 days. Why didn't you guys do that, right? It was one phone call. The capital to do it wasn't particularly hard to find, right? And so there's all these opportunities to do this sort of free-range instigation, but we hide from them, and that makes me anxious in the worst way.
And that's why we don't do as many fruitful failures as we should. I think it was in 1999, you wrote what I thought then and I think now was an excellent work called Permission Marketing. That was in 1999.
Yeah, I was a little ahead of my time.
That's a solid 13, 14 years ago. Has your thinking changed at all about permission marketing? Has it been honed, better focused? Do you know things now about it you didn't know then?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing is I was more right then than I thought, mostly, in terms of how futile it would be to try to use the internet to interrupt masses of people. I was wrong in how powerful the need to share for free is. So most of what I talked about in permission marketing was giving people a tangible benefit for getting these messages. It turns out, and my blog is proof of this, you don't have to give them very much for people to be eager to get something that they can share. That when a YouTube video gets seen by 1 billion people, they're watching it because they want to, not because you paid them to. And that was huge. That caused me to miss a big chunk of what was about to happen on the internet. But the basic idea that people who earn the privilege of delivering anticipated, personal, and relevant messages to people who want to get them, those people are going to have power going forward. I'll give you the simplest example. Who made more money last year? Travelocity or American Airlines? Travelocity is a site about travel. American Airlines is travel. And yet American Airlines lost money and Travelocity made a fortune. And the reason is no one wants to hear from American Airlines, and lots of people are eagerly hearing from Travelocity all the time. So as the Sherpa, the guide, the person who's connecting, you create value. Whereas the airlines are in this death battle to the bottom, where no one's going to win, because if you win the race to the bottom, you lose. And it's way better to be the person who has earned the privilege to talk as it is better than it is to own a building or a jet.
You talk a lot about art in your latest book, The Icarus Deception. And again, I want to read something here from this book. You say, originality and art in the connected age are not a choice. It's impossible to do the work before us without them. It's impossible to connect without art. What are you talking about?
Okay, so let's be really clear. Art is not painting or sculpture or writing a play. Some of those might be art, but lots of times it's merely paint by number. On the other hand, the triage nurse at the Greensboro Hospital who looks you in the eye and does a better job of getting you the right care you need, that's art, because it's not in a manual. And it can't be done the same way every time. And it's human. And it might not work, and it involves a connection. So my definition of art is, yes, Andy Warhol did some things that were art, and other things he was merely copying himself. The ones that he did were art were moments where he was initiating and inventing and creating, and yes, touching other people. So if the painter keeps all her paintings in the attic until after she's dead, she's not an artist, she's a painter. It's not art until there's a collision with the world. Now, part of what makes it art is it's being done in some level for the first time. This conversation you and I are having, you put a lot of effort into thinking about how to guide it and doing the research. And you're saying things that might not resonate with me. We didn't practice. So in this moment, there's some art going on. And if it becomes really remarkable, people here will remember it for weeks or years to come, right? We all have this chance to do art because the world keeps changing. During revolutions, you can't do what you did yesterday because the rules are different. But if all you're doing is what you did yesterday but cheaper and faster, you're working in a factory. You're not making art. So my argument is we're not training artists. We're not developing the skill set among our students and our coworkers and our employees to teach them to use their best judgment, to teach them to notice things and take action on their own. But that's all that's going to work going forward. The only thing that's helping our country and in the international race here is other countries are worse than us at this. That in Asia, they're really good at teaching to the test. And lucky for us, the test doesn't matter anymore, right? But what we got to figure out is not how to sit around playing more video games, but how to sit around designing more video games, ones that haven't been designed yet.
As our students do at Hype University, interactive gaming.
I was at the center.
Yes, very important. In the same book you talk about, I think that's what you're referring to, you talk about comfort zones and safety zones. What is the difference and which is more dangerous?
Right, so it was inspired by a conversation I had with a friend, and she was looking for a job, and I gave her a list of 20 interesting ways that she could find the career she deserved, because she's an all-star. And she said, you know, Seth, these are outside my comfort zone. And I thought about that phrase, comfort zone. Well, we have a comfort zone because it's easier than constantly recalibrating what's safe. We look at what's safe in our environment, we draw boundaries, and inside those boundaries we don't have to reconsider, right? So if you're in your house and the doors are locked, you don't have to worry about whether there's a burglar around every corner because you've established the perimeter, if you're a nervous person, and inside it's safe, so you're comfortable. When we stop checking for safe, we just check for comfort. Am I comfortable here? Like right now I'm comfortable on stage because I've done this a whole bunch of times, haven't been shot at once, it's okay, right? I don't have to check for safety because I've learned to be comfortable.
We can't shoot you, we need you tonight.
There you go. So here's the problem. The problem is when your comfort zone and your safety zone are the same, your strategy is brilliant. But if things change and the safety zone's over here, but you're busy checking to see if you're comfortable, you've made a horrible error. Because this is the place of safety, but you're busy being comfortable. So there are 10,000 people who were working at Ford Motor Company doing what they were told. That was comfortable, it felt safe, and they all lost their job on the same day. Not their fault, because their bosses were idiots, designed bad products, they all lost their jobs on one day. Yeah, except it is their fault because they were listening to their bosses all those years when they should have been standing up and going on strike because the company was making lousy products. Because if they had done that, they would have been moved to a new safety zone, but it would have been out of their comfort zone to go do that. And so I'm saying, think really deeply. Are you stuck where you are stuck because it's safe, or are you stuck where you're stuck because it's comfortable?
All right, Seth, I have a bunch of questions.
Bring them on. I'll go faster now.
How do you stay in shape? You look good. Love the socks.
The socks are a whole story. I'll tell those tonight. I am pretty strict about what I eat, so that way I can be creative about what I think. And so I haven't had a whole bunch of foods that are bad for you in 20 years. And I have cross-country skis with wheels on them that I use all the time on the bike path. So if you see me coming, get out of my way.
Okay. You don't watch much TV, but what's your favorite TV show?
Well, I love The Prisoner from 1964. If I had to watch like 6 hours of TV in a row, it would be The Prisoner or certain original Star Trek episodes. Because you have to think really deeply about what he had in mind. Patrick McGoohan was crazy in the best possible way when he made that show. And I highly recommend it. On airplanes, after I finish and I have an hour before I get home, I will watch the trashiest show on AMC called Suits, because Suits has all these manipulative crises. Every 4 minutes you can count on there being some beat, and I'm a sucker for that. So that's my trashy one.
2 books or 3 books that you love the most?
Well, I would need to put a Zig Ziglar book on that list. I'd need to put Tom Peters' Pursuit of Wow on that list. I often find myself going back to a lot of classic science fiction books. Cory Doctorow's new science fiction is fabulous and will help you think about the world really differently. And that's more than 3.
Okay. Some pet peeves?
See, the thing is, I like my pet, Baxter the dog, and I don't think you should like your peeves. So I have no pet peeves.
Okay. Do you have any peeves you hate?
Well, if you go to Google "This is Broken," which is a TED Talk, it's on TED, but I didn't do it at TED, you will see me rant for 18 minutes, unrehearsed. I've never done it before or since. It's really worth watching. That's my peeve list.
Okay. What did you give your wife on Valentine's Day?
Oh. I gave her 24 roses, and what else did we do? We went out together. Spending time together is the most important part.
You saw some of these sculptures we have across campus of men and women, great men and women of history. It's a reminder to our students as they walk back and forth that, that they enjoy the present because of the history we all have and we all cherish. If you could have dinner or lunch with somebody from history, somebody not living, who would that be?
My mom.
And what would you talk about?
What it's like to be here without her and what she would have been proud of.
What would she be most proud of?
She taught me about volunteering and standing out about things you cared about. And I try to do that every day.
You have 2 children, Seth. What is some advice you give your children frequently?
Well, as you know, having had teenagers, frequent advice is a bad idea. And you know, my problem, which is not broadly applicable to the audience, is they get to read my blog. So they can quote back to me anytime they want, right? I'm super proud of my kids, and mostly I have taught them to make a ruckus, not to follow instructions. I have, with my wife, raised free-range kids. And you know, when I was 14, my parents put me on this adventure that ended up with me being abandoned at 11:30 at night by myself in downtown Cleveland with $24 in my pocket. And I had been seasick for 2 days, and the guy who I was helping with the project basically just abandoned me. And I figured out how to get my way home, back to Buffalo. And having, you know, been sick to my stomach for 2 days, lost in Cleveland in 1974, downtown, and flying home, got home at 10 a.m. Monday morning. And my mom picked me up at the airport, and she took me to school. She said, "Of course you're going to go to school." And it was a great lesson. Right? Like, adventures are not something to be hidden from. They're something that we're here to do.
So if we walked across campus and you walked into a classroom and shared with 20 or 30 of our students, and they asked you, tell us about a lesson, a hard lesson that you learned in life. Can you share such a lesson, and what did you extract from it?
Well, before I would answer that question, I would talk about spectating. I worry that because of reality TV shows times 10 and other things, we are developing this culture of spectating. So if people want to hear my hard lesson so that they can vicariously experience my hard lesson, I have no desire to share it. That the only purpose for you guys to be here tonight or to go to this institution is for you to go do something. And if you can learn along the way, that's great. But the best lessons aren't my lessons, they're your lessons. That go collect some of your own lessons, because by the time I was sophomore, I had plenty, right? And most of the lessons that I would share are about failure, about not being able to make payroll, about the perils of overpromising, and about believing deep down that it's all going to be okay. Because there were lots of times in this journey, 8 years where I was near bankruptcy, where I wasn't sure it was all going to be okay. And the minute I came to understand that surviving is succeeding on the path that I was trying to go, And I calmed that part of my brain down enough, not all the way, but just enough that I could do the work. My work improved, and once the work improved, the outputs improved, and then it was okay. And so it's, walking around believing the amygdala, believing the lizard and the resistance that you're a fraud and that you're going to get found out and it's all over, doesn't help. That what Brene Brown has so brilliantly spoken and written about, I hope you have her come, is that to make art, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be open to what will happen. You can't control. That guy right there, he hasn't liked one thing I've said all night, and I'm not trying to control what he is thinking, because I can't. But I can do the best I can do and put it into the world, and the world will figure out what to do with it and send me a message back, and maybe next time I'll do it different. But understanding that that's your choice, that took me a long time to learn.
How about a success you've had in your life besides your children? Something you're really proud of. What is that? You've contributed measurably to our world in terms of what you've written, what you've explored, some of the things that you've talked about today that are out on the edges. You're challenging us to get out of not only our box, but out of our zone to explore and find new areas.
Yeah, I would say professionally, it's what the people who learn from me are teaching to other people. That's something I'm willing to pay attention to in the outside world. And I am pleased that it is the second and third order stuff is going on, because that is why I'm doing it. I don't need people to mention my name next to the word purple cow. I don't need people to reference what I've done when they want to teach someone else. Just take it. I'm not doing it because I want more from the world. I want to just help the world go faster and louder.
Seth, if I had the chance to meet your children and I were to ask them to give me 3 adjectives to describe you, what would they be?
Unemployed. They've mentioned that one more than once. Present, which is both physical and emotional. And I hope the third one would be nurturing.
This is what they would say, or this is what you want them to say?
No, this is what they would say.
What do you want them to say?
You want me to? You can call them. Actually, I left my phone backstage, but you could call them if you want.
What do you want them to describe you as?
That's up to them. I'm really not doing things so that they'll describe me one way or the other.
It's okay with you, however they say it.
What can I do? Yeah.
But you've modeled for them
Well,
principles and values.
I've lived this out loud life with intent, right? That one of the things that the internet teaches us is you're on camera, that there's this trail behind you. And one of the things kids teach you is you're on camera and there's this trail left behind you. And they both seem to be happening to me at the same time, but they're happening to all of us. And so you don't get to say to your kid, yeah, I stole money from the petty cash box because I needed it, but don't steal money. You live the best life that you know how. But if you're trying to control their interpretation of what you do, it's a losing game, I think.
What are you working on now?
Okay, so as we talked about backstage, I had 4 books come out 9 weeks ago. So just cut me a little slack.
You really are unemployed.
Yeah.
My favorite book, I've known about Seth's work for a long time. My favorite book is Purple Cow. Not necessarily because it's the most intellectual book or the best research book, although it's good on both counts, but because it bespeaks about something very relevant in the way I think.
Well, it's about you, basically.
maybe it's about me, but I think it's more about High Point University. So here's what the dust jacket of the book says. This is the classic bestseller that taught the business world that safe is risky, that very good is bad, and above all, you're either remarkable or you're invisible. And then later you say, some folks would like to believe that there are too few great ideas, or that their product or their industry or their company can't support a great idea. This, of course, is nonsense. The cow is so rare because people are afraid. If you're remarkable, it's likely that some people won't like you. That's part of the definition of remarkable. Nobody gets unanimous praise, ever. The best the timid can hope for is to be unnoticed. The best the timid can hope for is to be unnoticed. Criticism comes to those who stand out. I like the book because it talks about how differentiating oneself in ways that bring forth value and that merit attention is perhaps one of the most effective ways to succeed in an ever-competitive, ever-changing, relatively complex world in which we all reside. And I also like the book because purple is High Point University colors. So, did the, what is it, the Moo? What is the name of that book?
The Big Moo?
The Big Moo, yeah.
I didn't write The Big Moo, I just edited it.
Okay, did that come after the
Yes.
Purple Cow?
So after this book, I thought, wouldn't it be great to use this momentum to raise some money for charity? We've raised $250,000 so far. What I did was I invited 32 other writers, like Malcolm, to write a 2-page essay. Many of them came in a little rough, so I had to do a lot of editing. And then no one got credit inside the book, so you don't know who wrote what essay.
I see.
And they were all about this idea of doing work that matters.
I see.
And 100% of all the royalties have gone to juvenile diabetes, the Acumen Fund, and Room to Read. And so we've built 6 schools in Vietnam and funded a researcher and 2 years of the Fellows Program. So it's been this extraordinary uptick. The big shift, that's fine. The big shift from writing this book to writing that one, editing that one, was this is a book about marketing. How does someone who wants to grow and build probably a business for money win when banal and boring can't work anymore? And what I discovered, and has been my arc ever since, is this isn't just about marketing. That what it means to be a human, except from 1860 to 1998, except for that gap, what it means to be a human is to do work that's remarkable. And that there was this brief interlude where we thought what you were supposed to do is stand in a straight row and do what everyone else did, right? Now we're back. We're back to this idea that your best self, that the part of you that sings, comes out when you're going to do that kind of work that you were reading about.
Beautiful, relevant, and very inspiring. On August the 23rd, again, you wrote on your blog, the easiest way to become number one is to redefine your focus and the way you serve your customers sufficiently that you redefine the market. Harley-Davidson isn't number one in the market for motorcycles, but they're certainly number one in the market for the kind of motorcycle that they sell. The other bikes may have 2 wheels, but they're for different customers with different needs. Speak to our students for just a second. What does that mean? What should they extract from that? As they graduate at a time when America has just gone through the most disruptive economic times, the last 65 years of our existence. It is occasionally disappointing. For some people, it's discouraging that you've worked hard, you went through college, you maybe borrowed some money, you expect the world to open its doors, welcome you in, and give you an opportunity to excel, and by your definition, to be weird, to make some amazing things happen. And yet that doesn't always happen. And so to be number one in your own being and in this world sometimes is more demanding and it's more difficult. What is it that you would say to our students as they face this new world and how they deal with it?
What that post is arguing for is a category of one. That if you're the only one in the category, you're number one. Right? So the hard part is how to be the only one in your category. So if people, I don't seek out speaking gigs, but if someone says, I need to get a speaker, there's 1,000 people they can choose from who are professionals. Mm-hmm. But if they say, I need Seth Godin to come speak, there's only one person they can hire, right? And so it's a pretty straightforward negotiation. When you think about High Point is not the number one university in America. It's just the number one university at being High Point. So if you go into the world, head held high saying, you should hire me because I went to the best university in America, you're not going to get anything. But if you can redefine the institution as being the only one that does what it does, if you can redefine what you do as the only person who does what you do, then you win, right? Now, that's the good news. The bad news, you talked about the economic disruption, it's just starting. And people can blame politicians all they want. It has nothing to do with politicians. The industrial age is over. It lasted for 120 years. It is over. That you will not be able to amass the productivity and the wealth and the middle class benefits that we did for so many years going forward, because no one's going to build a factory that makes carpeting for half what it used to cost. No one's going to build an industry in North Carolina that makes furniture that's such high quality that people will pay extra for it in volume, because the race to the bottom and the idea that we can make physical goods or connect services really cheap, that's permanent. So what that means is if you feel like you are entitled to make a very good living doing what someone else tells you to do, you are wrong. Never again will anyone make you a good job offer to do precisely what they say, because there's someone cheaper than you who will do precisely what they say. And the most vivid example I'll give you is there's a drive-through in California at a McDonald's, and you go up to that little microphone and you talk to the person 8 feet away behind the glass, except you're not talking to him. Your voice is going by TCP/IP over a satellite to South Dakota, because someone gets paid 12 cents less an hour in South Dakota to take your order, type it in, and then it goes to the guy who's 8 feet away from you. Because why wouldn't you do that if you're trying to save 12 cents an hour times hundreds of employees? Well, it works its way up. If you're an insurance adjuster, whatever job it is, if I can write down all the steps, I'm not going to pay you extra anymore. Which means that what used to be a good job, what your parents thought were good jobs, are gone forever. We should just acknowledge that. And they're going to be replaced by either really unfortunate people who are getting paid, quote, less than their worth to do brain-dead work that hasn't been robotized yet, or people who choose to do work without a map, to figure out how to solve interesting problems, to do more than they are told, to be the indispensable one in a category of one. Those people are going to get paid a fortune, because we have a real scarcity of those people. And the magic, if you're 23 years old, or 43 years old, or 63 years old, is you can choose to be that tomorrow. You can't choose to necessarily be it in exactly where you want, at the scale you want, but you can do it a little. And once you do it a little, you can do it more and more and more. And that is what we are left with, and I think it's great.
I do too. And I also think that that universities and colleges across America have a responsibility, that while at the same time we have to acknowledge what's happening in the world, we have to also understand that God breathed in our nostrils and gave us life, that every individual who entered the hallways of this university can, through intentional congruence, can make something of their life. And that's why here we say we're in the business of planting seeds of greatness, not only in the minds, but in the souls and the hearts and the spirits of our students. I believe with every fiber of my body, because I'm a product of this thinking and this learning, that every individual can make something of their life, that students can survive and thrive in an ever-changing, ever-demanding world, that they can be a category of one, as as our friend Calloway talks, and that we can make something of our life in spite of the difficulties, the competition, the resistance, the headwind.
Actually, because of.
And because of.
Because if everyone could do it easily, it wouldn't be scarce.
Absolutely.
It's our friend that people are paralyzed, because that makes it even easier for you to make a ruckus. Like, I gotta tell you, I have a lot of output, but I'm not sitting there for 18 hours a day banging my head against the wall. I can write this stuff because other people who could write it are choosing not to. And the same thing is true with the software companies I've started, and the same thing is true with so many things that we see in the world, is that, you know, you've had great success in business, but you're the first person, I think, to admit that you're not a business genius and no one else could have done it. You just saw something and you did it. That sounds easy. It's really hard.
By your definition, I'm not a genius. I'm weird.
Nicest thing I could say to you.
It's nice to have all of you here on the campus of High Point University. Seth, it's always wonderful to see you and to have you on our campus. And we hope that you'll come back often. We hope that you will continue to write good material that can encourage all of us, inspire us, and educate us along the path of life. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Seth Godin.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nido.
Great job. Thank you very much.
High Point University Presents Seth Godin is a production of UNC TV in association with High Point University.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.